what I did was I wrote a guarantee. I wrote a guarantee together with consumer advocates and some lawyers. I told you so many of the problems in real estate start at the very beginning with the home sellers. So what I did was I wrote a Homesellers Protection Guarantee that works like this. When you call an agent out about your home, you say to the agent, before I sign anything with you, you have to sign with me. And there are 16 major points in here, and the agent has to sign every one of them, and each one of them basically says you can't be ripped off. Can I tell you, anything you're going to buy, when people give you promises, salespeople, such glorious promises, always say to them, gee, that sounds good. Would you put it in writing? Henry says he's going to make 5 people a millionaire, or 1,000. He wants to create world history and get 1,000 millionaires to pay him $15,000 each. Wake up, what's that, $15 million? Why don't you say to Henry, tell you what, Henry, tell you what I'll do. Instead of me paying you $15,000, I'll give you $100,000 after you've made me a millionaire. Just think about it, please. And you might think to yourself, how can a man stand in front of you in a suit and make these promises if they weren't legit? Well, I'll tell you how, because it's buck passing between ASIC, the ACCC, the Department of Fair Trade. Nobody knows, sort of like nobody wants to touch it. It is so huge. Anyhow, and I'll tell you, give you an idea how far it goes. After I first wrote this, I got a letter from the Department of Fair Trading complaining about my consumer protection guarantee. Can you believe? Yeah, what? Oh, don't worry that the fellow who signed it used to be an agent. All right, it says it could cause confusion. Now, I haven't replied. That was over a year ago. I haven't replied because I have to speak to, and I've actually gone past this now. I'm going to bump it up to 100,000, but it was 50,000 consumers. And I want to ask you, are you confused by this? Let me tell you what's in it. First thing, by law, according to this, you've got 1 day in New South Wales, but you must get a cooling off period. Is that confusing? The agent cannot sign you up for more than 49 days on a selling contract. So, for instance, you won't have something like this elderly couple that was signed up for 180 days, which still goes on and can still, I've seen, the worst I've seen is an agent signing up an elderly seller with the words, the expiry date of the agreement, when sold. So is it confusing that they can't sign you up for more than 49 days? Outstanding advertising. Advertising, they can't charge you any advertising. It's all going to be built into the fee so that you don't get any letters like this. Outstanding advertising account. VIFA, that's how they spelled it too. You know, we're reluctant to take this action. Anthony Romano, director. Okay. Estimated selling price. If they give you a price and it sells below the lowest point that they've quoted you, they can't charge you any commission. Does that confuse you? Does that confuse you? Of course not. No fees are payable until such time as the property is sold and you're happy. Is that confusing? Of course not. And they're not allowed to do any insider trading on your property. In other words, they cannot buy the property and sell it to a mate or anything like that. Never mind that they're allowed to do it if they disclose it. Brian is 71 years of age. Brian lived next door to a real estate agent. And if you think it's dangerous living next door to power lines, try living next door to a real estate agent. Brian wants to sell his house. The real estate agent buys it from him for $200,000 and sells it 3 weeks later for $307,000 and wonders why. What'd you put his face up there for? Why did I put Richard James's face there? The reason is because I want Richard to give him the money back. You know what Richard said? He didn't win the money back. You know what the elderly fellow said? Well, I feel a bit diddled, but I did shake hands and a deal's a deal. This agent said he wasn't wearing his agent's cap. Look at this. Let's take you out to Maroubra again. Or East Gardens, LJ Hook and Maroubra. Look at this. Auction on the 17th of July. Anthony Romano and Anthony Rizzo. Right, okay. Hello, there's the auction list. Look closely. It's vanished. It's not on the list. Abracadabra simsalabim. How did they do that conjuring trick? Well, let's have a look and see what it says on the transfer. Who bought it? Oh, Anthony Valerio Romano and Anthony Sandro Rizzo. All right. And what they pay for it? $340,000. I see. And I wonder what they did with it. A couple of months later, they sold it for $480,000. And what was the owner's name? Somebody called Olive or something like that? Yeah. Nobody does it better. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Hooker. Thank you. The Real Estate Institute in New South Wales sent a letter to its agents at the end of last year about the new laws that are coming in talking about, oh, we've got concerns about all this, but don't worry, agents, we'll continue to promote your interests. That's what we'll do. What kind of people are we, says Professor Russell Goff, if we don't have the character to own up to our own shortcomings and responsibilities? I want to say to you that not every real estate agent who's a member of the Real Estate Institute is a crook. Not every First National office is crooked or shonky or involved in investment scammers. Not every Ray White office has got deals going with the investment scammers. Not at all. Not every LJ Hooker office is involved in insider trading. There are some fine and great people working in the LJ Hooker organisation. And not everybody associated with Jenman approved is as good as I'd like them to be either. And sometimes some of them, my biggest disgraces come from them. But here's my point. What are you doing, Mr. Hooker, about your insider trading matters? What are you doing, Mr. White, about Mrs. Pope? What are you doing, Mr. First National, Mr. Ian Bremner, about Shirley and a handicapped child and losing a superannuation money because she trusted your company? Well, I'll tell you this, and this is a fact. If you dealt with an approved with one of those, and that happened, I would give up my house to protect yours. And all I say is they should do the same things. But they don't. All they do is cover up, tell you it's not really happening, and anyway.